So I've got some bad news. I was out riding over the weekend. It was a beautiful day out. Was going to go enjoy the day with some friends, riding on the skis, and I did not even make it 10 minutes past the boat landing. The GP just completely died, and we had no power to it. You could hear almost like a ticking sound. So I got towed in, and I just started tearing things apart. I really should have had it on video for all of you guys, but I was in a rush to figure out what the problem is so we can get it fixed and back on the water as soon as possible. And it turns out we actually dropped a valve on cylinder number 4, which absolutely sucks. I wish this wouldn't have happened, but what caused it is actually super interesting, and I guess it's a good thing that it happened to me so I could show you guys what caused it, and hopefully all of you guys can avoid this and never have to worry about it. So from the factory, all the SVHO skis have a flame arrestor in them. All skis that you're going to buy do have a flame arrestor, but it just so happens that the flame arrestor style on the SVHO is very, very bad. It's very common for them to turn sideways and lose performance, and ours happen to push through completely and choking down cylinder number 4. We were losing performance there, and it actually is supposed to have a rubber gasket around it to help hold it in place, and that gasket's nowhere to be found. That likely got ate up and ran through the engine, and that probably melted to the backside of the valve, causing it not to close all the way, and then bending the valve when it hit the piston, with the final result being a dropped valve. Luckily, this happened at a very low mile per hour, so the piston is completely fine, and we really lucked up there. But if we would have been doing a top speed run and this happened, it definitely could have been a catastrophic event. So looking at the intake manifold, you could see the flame arrestor. I actually pulled it through here so you guys could see what's going on. So this turned sideways in here, which is actually very common, and this is going to choke your airflow, slowing your ski down, which is not what you want to begin with. But there's also a rubber gasket that's supposed to be all the way around this, and that helps hold this in place, and that's gone. So that pushed through there and was all the way in cylinder number 4, hurting the engine. When the rubber gasket came apart, it was sent through and resulted in the catastrophic failure that we did have. And being that the flame arrestor failed in the intake manifold, we ended up dropping a valve. This is not due to high RPM. This happened at like 35 miles per hour. We were just cruising around, and unfortunately we're gonna have to get this fixed. We lucked up, and the piston does look okay, and everything in there is fine. So we're gonna be dropping this off at a local shop to do a complete valve job on it. And while we're at it, we're also gonna be putting in the titanium retainers, and we're gonna do a full stage 2 install. And this actually all could have been avoided if we would have just had an intake manifold upgrade kit. It deletes the factory flame arrestor, and you won't have any worries about this. The failure to this engine is the result of stock parts failing, not aftermarket stuff. The aftermarket stuff would have actually saved this, and this is a very poor design on Yamaha's part, and I really hope in the future that they come out with a better design to avoid this from happening, because the last thing anybody wants is to be stranded on their ski with the end result of being all of this. So with the outcome of that, I've got the ski completely stripped down. There's really nothing left in it, just some wiring and the short block. So this is almost a perfect time to install stage 2. So that's what we're going to be doing in this video. We're going to get this fixed and everything put back together. I really wish this was a complete ski to show you guys exactly how to install stage 2 straight from when you get to your ski, but I would have to put this entire thing back together and strip it almost all the way back down to where it is now, aside from the head being off the engine, and that's a lot of extra work. And when I'm putting it all back together, it's the exact same steps to take it all apart to install stage 2, and I will also be putting a link to detailed instructions how to do all of this to really help you guys out. So the first thing we're going to do for this install is get the intake manifold upgrade kit on there to show you guys how that's done, and that's going to fix this issue that put a quick end to my day of riding, and then we're going to get rolling with the rest of stage 2. So when you open up your intake manifold upgrade kit, you want to bolt on this template using the supplied bolts that come with it. But before you do that, you also want to take out the red gasket that'll be right here. This is it, and then from there we can go on to drilling it. It comes with this hole saw. I put some grease around it so it'll slide real good along this metal template, and then you can just go ahead and drill out that ridge. Of course, on yours, your factory flame arrestor will be there, but in my case, it's not. Once you get this drilled out, you will have to cut a rubber ring around your flame arrestor because of the unfortunate event that happened to mine. I don't have one, so this fell right out. So you'll have to cut that ring and drill a screw into it to pull it out, because it is supposed to be a tight fit, but As you can see, this was very well beat up. There's no longer a rubber gasket holding it in there. And this is what caused all of this mess. And this even happens on stock skis. So you want this out of your ski as soon as possible, and not to mention that you're going to get increased performance with this out because this does restrict airflow. Once you get the flame arrestor out, you want to grind down that ridge. I'm using a Dremel with a little sanding wheel on there. Then you can clean up all of this and put in the delete kit. And with that installed, we can see that there's nothing blocking the airflow like this would. I mean, you can barely see the light of day through this. So not only are you fixing the issue that this caused, but you're increasing performance with increased airflow. Now you're good to go to install the throttle body back on here with the factory hardware. But before you do that, you're going to want to thoroughly clean this and blow it out with an air compressor, because there is plastic shavings in here from drilling this and cleaning it up with the Dremel. But I'm going to hold off on installing the throttle body right now because I need to drill and tap this for the blow-off valve, which I'll get to in a little bit. But right now, I'm going to go ahead and get started on the cooling kit. So with literally everything out of the engine bay, this is going to make installing the cooling kit pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and get started with this T-fitting and run the new line to where it needs to go. And from there, I'll take this piece out and replace that with the new water inlet that's going to be going in there. I'm going to get the hoses run for the intercooler and drill in the back of the pump. Like I said, I'll be putting detailed instructions to all of this because chances are your ski's not going to look like this. It's just going to be a different process. So let's go ahead and get rolling with this for now. So I've got all the water lines I could do so far done in the ski. Now we got to move on to the pump. This piece has to come off. We're going to be putting this aluminum billet strainer in there. And then we're going to tie in this fitting. I already added some pipe thread sealant to it. We're going to tighten that up on there. And then we're going to run a separate hose just for the intercooler. We're going to get more water flow. And it's going to keep the intercooler temperatures down to make more horsepower. So I got all the pump set up like it needs to be. Now we're going to move on over to the exhaust, drill that hole for it, and then start assembling everything on the inside. From here, we can put the exhaust in, the water box back in, and the stock exhaust manifold. And it'll be pretty smooth sailing from there. We get the intercooler and supercharger all back in, and then we'll be able to start getting this head back on. So I've got the cooling kit and the exhaust completely done, which really doesn't sound like a lot, but the cooling kit is very tedious and there's a lot of work involved in it, and actually the bulk of it's knocked out. All we have left to do is put the intercooler in and then put the head back on so we could assemble the rest of the engine. As you can see, it's all starting to come together. The exhaust kit actually frees up a lot of room back here, and then the new intercooler is going to mount up there where the factory air box used to be using this bracket. This section will mount to where the factory air box was. It comes with some nuts to utilize for that, and then the intercooler bolts directly to this. And then taking a look at the intercooler, we could really see how much larger this is next to the stock intercooler, which I've already got taken apart. This is much smaller and less efficient than this will be. The air goes in one side, passes through the other on the stock intercooler. It's a really small intercooler core and it's just not efficient, and it's not lowering the intake air temperatures to where they really should be. This is going to greatly improve that, and we're going to pick up a lot of performance gains just from this intercooler. So before we get the intercooler in the ski, you're going to want to transfer these rubber bushings and bolts from the stock air box into the intercooler as a mounting point for this. And I'm also going to install the blow-off valve on here while it's out of the ski just to make it easier. And in this kit, I'm running a tile 50mm blow-off valve. That'll go right here, and once all that's done, we can get rolling and putting this in the ski. Alright guys, so I've got most of it wrapped up now. I've got the intercooler in, the head's back on, the exhaust is all put together. All that I've left to do is the cam timing, drill and tap the intake manifold for the hose going to the blow-off valve, and then putting the intake manifold back on the ski, and then we'll be ready for our first fire up. So far, everything done on this has been really easy. Yeah, it's a little tedious and time consuming, but really anyone can do it. When you go to do the cam timing for the valve retainers, it gets really tricky. I'm not gonna be able to show you how to do the valve retainers themselves in this video because the shop that did the complete valve job on this head just went ahead and put them in for me anyways, but that's the easy part. It's getting the cam timing right. The cam timing on these engines is very difficult. It's probably gonna take you a few tries, and you're gonna wanna use a dial indicator to get the engine at top dead center. And once you got it complete, spin it over a few times, make sure it's all correct, because it's very common for people to be off a tooth or even more than that, and their performance will be lacking, or even worse, they could bend a valve if their cam timing's that off. If you're not comfortable with doing this, you can either A, not do the valve spring retainers and run a lower RPM tune limit, or have a professional shop do it for you, because doing this is not something that most people are going to be comfortable with. Unless you're very mechanically inclined, and I've done mechanic stuff before, you could probably do this no problem. But for a complete beginner, this is definitely going to be a bit difficult. So I got the cam timing done. You can see this little dot here on the exhaust cam, and that's going to line up with this line here. And the same thing is going to go for the intake side. This little dot will line up with this line there. It is a bit tricky to get it done. Please triple check it if you're going to do this yourself. It's not the most complicated thing in the world, but you do want to triple check it just to make sure it's 100%. Now we just got to finish the intake manifold and we can fire this thing up. So you'll want to drill a hole here in the intake manifold with the 21/64 drill bit. After that, you want to tap it with a 1/8 NPT tap, and then we can go ahead and put the fitting in there with some thread sealant on it. You do not want to tap in to this hose on the other side of the intake manifold. If you tap into this hose right here, your engine will not function properly. It's not hard to do this at all. Just drill it and tap it, and you won't ever have to worry about it. Alright guys, so I'm finally able to get the GP to the water after everything that's done, after the valve drop and going full stage 2 on it. So everything done to this, I've got a stage 2 Riva Racing engine build, a Riva Racing ride plate, a 1318 impeller, and that is it. I'm running an out the box 1318 impeller. I haven't touched that one bit, and I've also have the stage 2 9200 aggressive Riva Racing tune. No custom tuning done whatsoever. Just slapped all of these parts on, didn't spend any time getting it dialed in, and we're gonna see what it runs with that. The air temps today are in the mid to upper 70s. It's a little cooler than what we've been used to, but still, a lot of people consider this to be hot weather, but we've been so used to 100-degree temps, we finally get a nice break in it. So we're gonna go ahead and see what this thing can do. Alright guys, so I got 89.4 miles per hour on GPS. The dash was reading 89. I'm only turning 9,000 RPMs, so I could get the RPMs up just a little bit more. I got over half a tank of gas in this, so I definitely think I could break 90 before it's all over with on stage 2, just to get the RPMs up. But for an out-the-box thing, no tweaking done to it, slapped on an out-the-box tune, an out-the-box impeller, along with all the other Riva Racing parts, you really can't beat that. We're still in the stock supercharger, stock injectors. Overall, I am very satisfied, and anyone else with this setup should absolutely be satisfied as well. There's not many people out there doing this, especially with all the ease of install and no tweaking necessary with the Riva Racing kit. That's gonna be it for this video, guys. Thanks for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all in the next one.